I have this stepfather, he's a nightmare, and he's not exactly mean to me, but what he has is an addiction. He's addicted to gambling. When I found out that he basically wasted away my college fund on sport gambling, obviously I confronted him about it, and guess what? He came up with this elaborate lie saying I'm the one that stole the money and everyone believes it. I'm Peter, and I live with my mom and stepdad and have a considerably happy life. I have a happy family, and both of my mom and stepdad, they're amazing parents. I'm obviously talking about the Norman before any of this happened, because before this I used to believe he fully cared about me and loved me as a son. And even now, after everything, I still believe he cares about me. So when I was 8, my father unfortunately passed away, and me and mom were alone for about 2 years. Even though I should have had a lot of memories of my dad, I don't remember him much, but I do still think of him as my father. I still have a short memory of him taking me to stuff and us walking together. My father was the kind of person who thought ahead and actually set up a college fund for me before I was even born. By the time he passed, there was enough money in the fund to help me go through college. My mom always talked about this being his last gift to me. It also made me very happy that he did so much for me, and I want you guys to remember the college fund. It will be coming back later on. As I already mentioned, about 2 years later, Mom remarried after meeting a great guy who became my stepfather, Norman. Obviously, Mom introduced me to him after things got serious between them, and only married him after I told her that I was happy with him. I seriously doubted Norman at first, because, well, 1, he was trying to take the place of my late father, and 2, I was really scared that he would hurt my mom. I mean, like, what else could you expect from a kid, right? What made me more suspicious was that he was very kind and caring, to the point where I felt that he was trying to trick me. So, at first, I kept my distance from him and tried to bring his true self out. Slowly, I was realizing that he was not playing a part to get me and was actually a kind person. I mean, he could have still been acting, but I decided to take a chance on it. So I told Mom to go ahead and they got married. Since then, time and time again, Norman has proved to me that I made the right decision, as he's always been kind and caring towards me and Mom. The only thing that was close to a problem with him was the fact that he had a gambling addiction for a long time, but he told us that he got over it. I'd say the only thing that made me feel bad was that even though Norman was pretty much my dad for half the time I've been alive, I could not think of him as a father. He was always my stepdad, that's it. And most of the time I called him Norm, which he himself told me he's fine with. But he always calls me son, and it made me feel sad thinking maybe he wanted me to call him father. But no matter how much I tried, I could not see him as my dad, as I already had a father. Norman could never take his place, and I would not allow that anyways. Having said that, he's always been my family, and I don't look at him as an outsider or something like that. He makes both me and my mom happy, and I always liked how much he made my mom smile. Now, you guys will fully understand how shocking it was for me to find out that Norman has another side to him. So, about a month ago, as I had just finished high school, I was planning on things for college and checked on my college fund. To my surprise, the college fund was empty and everything had been used. I, at first, could not believe it and rechecked it 5 times? Just to believe what my eyes were seeing. All that money had been drained and probably used by someone. But who could it be? It could not be Mom because she would have told me, and if there was an emergency, I would have known about it too. Now, I knew for sure that I had not used it as it was my dad's gift to me. So I was left with only one option, but I kept telling myself that it could, not be my stepdad because he had no reason to do anything like this. He's not the type who uses a lot of money too, and he constantly buys things only for me and Mom. We have to force him to buy things for himself or buy a gift, to give them to him. That's the kind of person that he is. So, if you were in my position, would you really immediately be able to doubt him? Well, I could not, and it took me over a week to believe it. So, after about a week, I finally got my answers, as I found out from an employee that my stepdad had been withdrawing my money bit by bit, and had emptied my whole fund. It was crazy. How could someone use that much money on nothing? It took me 2 days to even fully believe what I found out. In my head, it was just not possible that Norman, out of all people, had used my money knowing it was a gift. When I was forced to believe that he was the one behind everything, I started thinking, and there had to be a good enough reason for it. Honestly, some part of me still wants to believe that he has a genuine reason behind it, but it's not looking good. I thought about how I should do for some time and came to the conclusion that I should see what he was actually doing, because he had spent his money on something and I intended to find out. At first, I assured that, he was either cheating or running a shady business or something like that because of how much money he had spent outside. So I decided to follow him for a few days until I found something. I followed him for almost an entire week, but found nothing and was about to give up on the idea. But on Friday, something happened. He came out early from work and went to his gambling place. He then spent hours there and probably also used a whole bunch of money. Wow. By this point, you guys have probably put two and two together, but let me still explain it for everybody. So, if you remember, Norman, he told us that he used to suffer from a gambling addiction, and he probably relapsed. After using whatever money he had hidden, he started probably using money from us since he wanted to keep everything a secret. At least that's what my theory is. Seeing him go back to the gambling, it broke my heart, as I was actually hoping that he had a good reason behind what he did. But he just used the money my dad gave me to play around and fill his addiction. I don't even have the heart to tell Mom because I don't even know how she's going to react to all of this. So after that, I followed stepfather for a few days just to confirm that he gambled frequently, and he did. This more or less proved my theory, and it made me mad, because it meant that he used me. But how can someone trick a person for so long? If Norman was not the person he made me believe that he was, he could not have kept up his act for so long. He would have done something that would have made me doubt him, but he never did. But now he had done this and put me in this dilemma. I don't know whether to confront him or tell Mom the truth and get him kicked out. I'm sure that the second she hears that he gambled my father's money, the marriage is done. It took a few days to think about this, and I'm very confused. I'm mad at my stepfather, but also think that there's a chance that he has a good reason. But if the reason is quite literally gambling, then I would rather not tell him that I know about it. But if the reason is good, I don't want to just jump the gun and break them up. Honestly, I don't know. I don't want to be the one to tell Mom in any scenario. That's why I came here, as I wanted some advice. I thought that I could get some good ideas, and believe me, it would really help. So, if you have any idea about the whole thing, what would be the best course of action, please tell me. I would really appreciate it. Update number 1. Hey guys, it's been almost 2 weeks now since my first post, and I think I've just made things worse. I've started to think that I should have just listened to you guys. I don't think I should have listened to my gut and instead done what was logical. Let me tell you guys exactly what happened. So, a few days after my update, I decided to go to listen to my gut, which would not let me go to my mom in case stepdad was innocent. Come on, logically, everything told me that he was guilty and there could be no genuine reason, but I still wanted to try and see. So I confronted Norman a week ago to find out what the real truth was. That day, as soon as my mom went out for some work, I immediately told Norman that I wanted to speak to him. He saw my face and assumed that it was a serious matter. I then told him that I had checked my college fund and found it completely empty. I also told him that the employee had told me that he was the one who withdrew all the money. Well, Norman was not really shocked, but rather looked relieved when he found out that I knew everything. He said that he knew that he had done an unforgivable thing. He apologized to me and then asked me to hear his explanation. He said that something had compelled him to do this, otherwise he never would have done it. He said that he knew how much the gift meant to me, and that's why he tried to keep everything on the down low, but I found out. He then apologized once again and explained to me why he had done this. He said that one of his friends had used his trusting and kind nature just to borrow a huge sum of money, which he gave from him and Mom's combined savings. The friend had only borrowed money for a few weeks, and he promised to return it quickly without fail. He actually used a sad story about his sick child to take the money. But a few weeks later, when he asked for his money back, he did not get a reply. He looked and looked but could not find the friend. It turns out he had gotten divorced and ran away with the money. He had also taken from a few other people and was nowhere to be found. This left Norman absolutely scared, as he did not have the courage to tell Mom about this. She had begged him to stop spending money and stop giving it to his friends, fearing that something like this would happen one day, and Norman had promised her that he would not anymore, and feared what she was going to do after she found out. Well, he was a bit depressed, which led him to relapse and start gambling again. Yep. In about a month, this led to him losing even more money, and out of pure desperation, he starts taking money from my fund and keeping it in the savings so that Mom would not find anything out. He said at first he used my money, but when he snapped out, he felt very bad about it. He then controlled his gambling again and was only doing it a little bit to help with the stress. He was also saving money on the side to pay for my college and had saved a bunch already. Well, at this point he gets emotional, which made me emotional, and I felt really bad for him. He said he was completely wrong here and asked me to tell my mom if I wanted. He then said that he got very close, in about a week's time he would have been able to put back most of the money he used. He said it was nothing more than pure luck, and he had accepted it, and I really felt bad, so I told him I was not going to tell Mom. I told him that he could tell her himself in a week, and that Mom would never be mad at him. He hugged me and said that he was happy, and said that I was the best. I just told him not to lie to Mom and me again, and he agreed. Well, guys, now it's been about a week, but he's showing no signs of telling her. Today, when I asked him, he told me that he'll do it soon. Seeing his behavior, I'm getting the feeling that he's not going to do it. I should have just done it myself. I'm going to wait for a few days and just see what happens. Guys, what do you think? Did I make the wrong choice by confronting him and giving him a chance to turn me into an emotional fool? Update number 2. Guys, I've made a terrible mistake. Norman is not the person I thought he was. You're not going to believe what just happened. Let me continue from where I left off. So, if you remember my last update a few weeks ago, I decided to wait a few days before doing anything. But I didn't have to wait long, because immediately the next day, when I came back after hanging out with my friends, a trap was waiting for me. And I already walked right into it without even realizing it. As soon as I reached home, I felt something was weird, because StepDad and Mom were waiting for me, and she looked mad. I was actually happy because I thought that he had finally told her, and she was just mad at me for not telling her the truth. I went in and told my mom that I knew that she was mad, but I did what I felt was right. Before I could even finish the sentence, she screamed at me to shut the hell up, and asked me what I did with the money. That's when I looked at old Normie, and for the first time in my life I didn't see his kind soul staring at me. I can't explain it, he looked normal, but it was like he had changed from the inside. He felt a lot more sinister, which I guess was a result of me realizing what was happening. He had fully understood the situation for me and was blaming me for absolutely everything. I couldn't believe it. I ignored my mom for a few seconds and asked Norman if this was his plan, I asked him if everything he told me was a lie. I said that I've always believed in him, and this is how he was paying me back. Well, guys, at this point, Mom slaps me across the face and tells me to shut the heck up. Norman did not respond, and Mom kept asking me to stop dodging her questions. At this point, I kind of knew that I was done because she had already made up her mind. I explained to Mom what really happened, but unfortunately she did not believe me. Norman had made sure that he could frame me without leaving me any of it. He actually had a fake recording of a friend of mine telling him how much money I was spending outside. Mom was incredibly upset at me, and I understood why that was, but she refused to listen to my explanation. I guess he had already told her that I would try to frame him, but still she could have listened to me a little. But she did not, and she just kept asking me to let everything go and tell the truth. When I kept telling her that it was him, she gets super mad, and she tells me how disappointed she was with me. She said that I should have been ashamed to use the money from my dead father, that doing so is dishonoring his memory.
Well, I kept trying to explain while she just kept blaming me over and over and over again. Like, Norman silently watched everything, and when Mom tried to throw me out, Norman tried to stop her. Can you believe this guy? Probably to look like the good person, but could not. Mom threw me out of the house and told me to never surface myself again. She said that she regretted having a child like me, and if my father could see me now, he would be incredibly disappointed. I had tears in my eyes as I begged her to listen to me and not to throw me out of the house, but she simply did not listen. I kind of already knew that once Mom made a decision, she never really backs out of it, but still I tried. She then starts throwing my stuff out on the lawn and threatening to call the police if I didn't leave now. Right now, I'm at a friend's place and I feel like a big idiot. I trusted Norman and he betrayed me, and now I have nothing to show for it. I have no proof, and the employee I mentioned previously got paid by him, I'm assuming, because when I showed up there a few days later, he kept avoiding me and refused to help at all. I've spent a long time thinking about what I could do next, but I've come up with nothing. I don't know what I can do anymore. Guys, I'm begging you to please help me. Update number 3. Hey guys, it's been 2 weeks since the last update, and yes, this time I have some good news. I know last time my situation looked pretty grim, and honestly, a few days after it, I almost gave up because there was nothing I could do. When I say that, I mean I had literally no options, and even the people here were telling me to give up. Well, you guys are probably wondering when that changed, right? Well, last week, out of nowhere, my aunt, Cassie, contacted me and told me that she would help me. My aunt, my mom's sister, had been cut off from our family for 5 years, and honestly, I was not told the reason. But from what I heard, she had gotten jealous and tried to steal Norman from Mom. My aunt and I were not very close, as she lived far away when I was young and only moved into our vicinity a few years before she got cut off. She had never contacted me after what happened, and my mom had strenuously forbidden me to contact, so I just never did. I was a bit skeptical to be talking to her, as I believed that she would try to turn me against my mother, but it turned out to be quite the opposite. This has clearly told me that I should never listen to my gut feeling, and she would tell me everything. It's constantly been wrong twice. Aunt then mentioned that she knew that Norman had something to do with what happened to me. I was shocked. When I asked her how she knew, she told me to meet her where I was free and she would let me know everything. So, a few days ago, I met with her and she told me what had actually happened. It turns out I wasn't the first person Norman had tricked Mom into kicking out. She was the first. So she had one day discovered that Norman was actually gambling behind Mom's back. Since she also cared about Mom and her happiness, she spoke with StepDad and asked him to stop. Norman begged her not to tell Mom anything and told her a sob story just like he did with me. She then agreed to help him stop, and he manipulated her enough to make it look like she was spending time with him. He then used this to frame her and told Mom that she was seducing him, and made her look guilty. Mom, just like in my case, immediately saw red, and told my aunt to never show her face in front of her family again. She cut her ties and refused to ever listen to her again after that. With this, I realize what kind of a-hole my stepfather really is, and what he made my aunt go through. I've come to the conclusion that Mom does not deserve to live with a person like him, and that he has made his last mistake by framing me. After I finished telling her what happened, Aunt told me that she would be happy to help me bring him down. She said that she was waiting for something like this, and this would be the perfect opportunity. I told her that I was more than happy to work with her and apologize for not contacting her. So, for the past few days, we've been working on what we can do. The good news is that my aunt already has some evidence against Norman, and I'm going to collect some more. With both of us and some evidence, we might be able to convince my mom and expose the truth. Anyways, wish us luck. Final update. Hey guys, it's been almost 2 months since my last update, and I'll dive straight into telling you what happened. So, if you remember my last post, I talked about how me and my aunt started working on exposing Norman. At first, things were not going as well as we expected because Norman was barely gambling. Well, fortunately, as I already mentioned, Aunt had some evidence of him doing this from a few years ago. Well, a week later, Norman started gambling again and things started to look up. I collected evidence for a few weeks, and after we had enough, we were discussing what to do next. Then my aunt gets a call from us. Well, they gave us the golden nugget of proof. Aunt learned from someone that she refused to reveal the identity of that Norman was trying to sell a necklace. When she gave me the photo, I was shocked and also happy, because it was the necklace my father gave my mom, and it meant a lot to her. I immediately told Aunt that we had to buy it and we could use it to, a sure-shot evidence against him. Aunt used her connections and got a friend of hers to buy it for us, and as soon as I laid my hands on it, I knew it was game over for old Norman. He was probably happy with the money he got, but before he could even gamble half of it, we showed up at my house. I went at a time when I knew Norman would not be there, and right at the door I showed my mom the necklace Dad gave her to make her hear me out. She then let me in, and I asked her to just hear me out and not get mad about what was going to come next. Mom almost burst into a rage, but controlled it when she saw Aunt Cassie. After that, we explained everything, and she almost did not believe us. But the evidence was overwhelming, and Mom had to accept the truth. I could clearly see the pain written in her eyes, as she realized everything she had done because of him. She cried and hugged my aunt and asked her for forgiveness and did the same to me. I told her it's all right, and about an hour later, Norman showed up, and what was waiting for him was way worse than what I got. So both Aunt and Mom jumped on his neck, and Mom must have slapped him a dozen times. Just like me, he kept trying to find ways to explain everything, but just like him, I had not left him any option. He then resorted to straight up begging. Yeah, saying, well, he did all of this because of his addiction. It's too late for that. He get kicked to the curb, and Mom threatened him to never come close to this area again. It's almost been a month since then, and things have gone back to the way that they were without Norman. My aunt had to go back, but promised to come as soon as she could. And I'm just happy that she was not mad at Mom. I am definitely not. I mean, I can't really blame her. Mother is in the process of filing a divorce, and is also planning on suing Norman for what he did. The only thing I can say for sure is that we are very happy. He was a snake in sheep's clothing, and I'm so glad that I caught him and that I came to you guys for help. So thank you.